Good morning, everyone. Today is Thursday, March 20th. It's a little after 10 a.m. We'll go ahead and call the Personnel and Administration Committee meeting to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice Chair Cone,
Present.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Here.
Alderman Aldridge,
Present.
President Green. 3 present, you have 4.
Thank you. With that, we have on the agenda today approval of the meeting minutes from Thursday, March 13th. I am trying to go through the drive to make sure that those are properly before us. It looks as though they are. I will entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from March 13th, 2024.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 14th, seconded by the Alderman from the 10th, that we approve the meeting minutes. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice Chair Cone,
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderman Aldridge,
Aye.
President Green. 3 aye votes.
Great. With that motion, or with that vote, you sustain the approval of the meeting minutes. Moving on to committee discussions. We have discussion item number 1, which is the legislative assistant for the 2nd Ward. It's my understanding that the alderman from the 2nd Ward is ready to post that position. And he is an incumbent, even ward with no challengers, or no election rather. So I would imagine we don't have to wait until we come back into session to hire them, because we would be able to do so on, well, I mean, shoot, we don't have a full board of aldermen meeting until sign die anyway. So I would imagine we would probably just go ahead and post this for the same length of time that we did for the previous legislative assistant, which was a 30-day period. Director Ingracia, Madam Clerk, do either of you see any concerns or issues with that?
No.
Okay. So I would recommend a motion that we post the legislative assistant position for Ward 2 for a period of 30 days. Is there someone willing to make that motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we post a legislative assistant role for Ward 2 for 30 days.
Second.
Been moved by the alderman from the 14th, seconded by the
Previous
alderman
role.
from the 10th. There's been a call for previous role. Is there any objection to previous role? Hearing and seeing none, motion carries. The second item on the agenda for discussion is Board of Aldermen projects and getting updates from Director Ingracia on those. Director Ingracia, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Wanted to first update you on some projects that you had previously approved regarding their status. If you've been in the office recently, you've probably noticed that the badge pass system, so that Board of Aldermen members and staff are able to swipe in instead of using keys in office spaces, is underway. One of the things that we've had a little hiccup on is we had some miscommunication about the door handles being replaced. So if you've seen the door handles on 230, 232, and 234, they are ADA compliant, but in some of our opinions, not necessarily aesthetically pleasant from a historical perspective. So we're doing some investigating to figure out what we might be able to do to replace those to make sure they're in line with the historic nature of the building. So I will keep you up to date on that when I have more information. The window treatments that you approved last month or the month before, that project is going to be starting on Monday, March 24th, this coming Monday, and they anticipate it will only take 1 day for that project to be complete. The new PA system has been ordered and is due to be delivered on March 28th. For those of you who have not been at the board for very long. We used to have a PA system so that the receptionist was able to communicate with board members, a countdown to when the meetings were starting and just a form of communication for meetings and committee hearings. So hopefully that will be installed in time for us to return to session. The other item that's outstanding, I am still waiting on a response from facilities. They had installed a temporary air duct in the window of 234 where the legislative assistants sit. That was not designed to be permanent, but has been in there since December. So I did follow up with facilities yesterday to ask them on the status of that. Any questions on those items?
Alderman from the 14th, Alderman from the 10th, any questions? I'm not seeing any from either of them. Thank you for the updates, Director Ingracia. I don't recall, did you mention a time frame on the PA system? You're saying that you hope that it'll be done by the time we go back, so that's like the next 30 days or so?
Yes, it's due to be delivered on March 28th, and facilities has agreed to install it for us. It's not a complicated system, so I would assume it would be in place in time for sine die.
Okay, do they have to rewire the
It's
old
all going to
system?
be wireless.
Oh, really? Okay. Will it be able to get from the chamber to the back offices in 234?
I've asked about that as well as the Kennedy room and was told yes.
Okay. Because like that hallway in 234 and the congressional room in 234, I think we're both hooked up to the PA system, if I remember correctly.
Yes, they were.
Okay. Awesome. That's great. I've been wondering when that'll get done. The only other update that I was wondering if you had for us was about the constituent management system.
Yes, so I wanted to pause because I do have some other reports and questions I'd like to ask the committee.
Oh, okay.
Mostly that we're getting towards the end of the fiscal year. We do get cut off by the comptroller's office where we can't spend more money for about a month, 6 weeks before the new fiscal year starts on July 1st. And we don't want to be leaving any money on the table. And so one of the things that we would like to propose to the committee that we've had some discussions with the clerks about and just listening to the wishes and concerns of staff members are desk replacements. And if we're doing desk replacements, does it make sense to try and replace the carpeting in office spaces? Clerk Kennedy has reported that the last time the carpeting was replaced was 1990, so that's 35 years ago. So just wanted to see if the committee thought it was appropriate. We have some general estimates from the facilities department, but we would need to get actual bids from vendors for those projects, which would likely include the possibility of remediating asbestos in those spaces in 230, 232, and then the back offices of 234. And we could replace with carpeting. One of the things that other departments have been doing, including the city councilor's office most recently, is deciding to put laminate flooring that looks like hardwood down, which is easier from a maintenance perspective. Also, germs, allergens, things like that, since we're not able to do these bigger projects very often. So that was one of the things we wanted to get permission from the personnel committee to investigate further in terms of estimates for desk replacement and carpet replacement in 230, 232, and 234.
I think it's a great idea. My only concern with like the laminate floors would be noise because the carpet does kind of buffer some of the discussions that happen, and especially in 230, where you have all of the staff in that little pod area. My only concern would be that the sound would be kind of bouncing off of everything over there. But aside from that, would we just recarpeted 234 though, I thought, with the renovations.
We didn't, we did some spot patching in places where it needed to be patched,
Okay.
but just a handful of tiles.
Gotcha. Okay. Uh, that's really my only concern with a laminate floor, is that, and also if someone does take a tumble, usually it's a little more damaging if someone falls on a, hard laminate floor versus a, carpeted floor. Not that we have too many people that are tipping over at the Board of Aldermen, but just, something to be mindful of as we have that discussion. But interested in what my colleagues have to say. Alderman, you're unmuted, so I imagine you have a comment or question.
Yeah, I think that's fine for the new desks. I know a lot of current desks that the staff use. Some of us alders I got rid of it because I think it's just really big and chunky. So maybe those new desks can give them, more space and maybe make their space either like smaller or just more 21st century. So I think we definitely should be using that money to invest in staff for them to have new desks, maybe even potentially like the desks that are in the LA suite
Standing. Yeah.
stand, and they don't have to sit all the time. If there's a smaller maybe version of that, because I know they also don't have as much space as how the LA suite is made out to be. So I support that. I support the lamining. I think we kind of did that in Jeff City. I think it's also cleaner. We drink a lot of coffee, and at the Board of Aldermen, and sometimes we have little events, and when it's easier to not make a mess that way, I think that's fine. My only concern with getting it during this time and knowing when you guys did the president's suite, I think you guys had asbestos. I'm pretty sure there's asbestos in 230 and the other suites. Is the time frame of doing it, because how would that work as the board is about to go back into session and we have to remediate the whole board, alders, how would that work with working in the office? Like remediation isn't going to take like 1 week, it's going to take some time, especially as you do that whole suite. How does that work for staff? So I think before we do that, if that's what we move forward, we should like have a plan in place for alders and staff and for the board of aldermen. How will we get in? Will we be going through the kitchen, guests and all of that? So there should be a plan before, if that's the direction. And I know we're probably under a short timeline because we do get cut off, but I wouldn't want us to, use it and remediate, and then the whole board is down in the like heat of the beginning of session.
If I may, I think that's a really great point and something we've discussed internally already, that we would be doing these projects when the board is in recess to the greatest extent possible, and then working with the clerks and other persons about staffing. I mean, obviously, some people are going to have to work from home for a period of time, but we can utilize other spaces that we have open. For example, if we do 234 first, there'll be co-working space for people to utilize while the other spaces are being redone. So it will obviously be a little painful in terms of our typical way that the office operates, but I do think it's worth it in the end. This is just something that's been deferred for so long, and it needs to be addressed.
So, yes, I was about to call you Alderwoman Ingracia, Director Ingracia. So this would touch both the staff spaces and the aldermanic office spaces?
Yes, and one of the things that the clerk is going to do is reach out to the alder persons. We know some individuals have purchased new desks on their own, but to ask if they want them to be replaced at this time. So that would be part of the work as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be wise if we just standardize the office equipment throughout, because I mean, it's a hodgepodge of, office equipment in every single area of the board. So, if we're talking about doing this, it would be nice to standardize it across the board. So, since we are talking budgets though, do we know the cost of both of these, the desks and the, carpeting?
I would like to, I know in generalities, because we've been given estimates by the facilities department, but that was a year and a half ago. And so costs have obviously increased, and then we have tariffs now in place. So in order to get a more clear, accurate picture of what this is going to cost, I would like to have vendors come in to give bids.
Okay. I'm supportive of that, just so that we have an idea. What's the time frame for the kind of budget freeze, if you will?
We'd like to have this money spent by mid-May.
Does it have to be spent, or does it have to be allocated?
It looks like our financial analyst has his hand up.
Okay, Ryan.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Yeah, I was just going to chime in to say, if it's obligated, and the project starts, so I mean, let's say the bids come in favorably, the committee decides to move forward, it's approved, you can begin purchasing the materials, purchase the desks, and the project, all of the asbestos work and everything wouldn't need to be completed during this fiscal year. It would be encumbered at the end of the year as long as the project is moving forward and those funds get obligated.
Okay, but is it just a matter of obligating the funds through
Oh.
a vote here, or do we need like a notice to proceed for the bit? Like what specific?
Well, whatever process the committee uses to give permission for the Board of Aldermen staff to enter those requisitions, it would just be as simple basically as getting actual bids, and then Tracy would enter the requisition in the system. So
Okay.
that's what I mean by obligated. And then once we have a purchase order, that's when the funds are obligated.
Great. Okay. So in theory, we could open up the request for bids, get those in, and then approve at a future personnel administration committee. And once we approve that, Tracy would enter it into the PO system, and then we'll we'll essentially be able to spend the money, but it doesn't have to necessarily be spent before the end of the year, or does it?
No, that's correct.
Where I'm
Yeah.
going with this is, to Alderman Aldridge's point, if we're going to do this during a recess, the summer recess is the longer of the two
Yes.
recesses, that would be coming, because we have a, spring recess and then, summer recess, and summer recess would probably be the more opportune time to do that. But that's also kind of on the cusp of the fiscal year as well. So, I just want to make sure that we're backing into timeframes here.
Yeah, and I'll just say that yeah, the summer break I think is when Christine and was thinking of doing it, and that's why this process of just getting it obligated during this fiscal year, because it's not a new thing, right? Lots of projects go from one fiscal year to the other, so it's
Great.
nothing irregular. It's not something that the board has done a lot, but certainly something that happens regularly.
Great. Okay. Any other questions or comments, Alderwoman or Alderman?
No.
Okay. Director Ingracia, I guess you just need a motion from us to approve the request for bids.
Yeah, well, I have one more thing. We were also looking at replacing the chairs that aldermen use in the Kennedy room. Many of those are broken. And so in an effort again to just continue deferred maintenance projects, we would like permission to purchase new chairs for the Kennedy room, not the guest chairs at this point, just the chairs for alderpersons and the staff that sit in the back. So if we could add that to any motion, if there's any questions, happy to take those as well. But that's the last project that we're looking at spending money on for this fiscal year.
Great. I'll go ahead and make the motion. I move that we approve bid
Quick
process.
thing, hello. Just one quick thing on the chairs, as we talk about aesthetics and, vibe of the Board of Alder. I don't know if may want to have conversations with other alders. Trust me, I would love a comfortable chair, but I just don't know if people would be getting upset about the chairs that we have as, the aesthetic of the board as we talk about that.
Yeah, I'm happy
I know
to
it's a
bring,
small thing, but
I'm happy to bring a few different ideas of what the chairs could look like to the personnel committee.
Okay, Alderman, do you want to make the motion?
it looked like you was on a roll. I'm not gonna stop you.
I was. So I move that we approve Director Ingracia going through the bid process, or opening up the bid process for new flooring in rooms 230, 232, and 234. A bid for new office furniture in those same rooms, 230, 232, 234, and for new chairs for staff in the Kennedy hearing room and members.
Chairman Cohn,
Yeah.
I
Did I-
apologize. I just want to clarify that because this is not a professional service, we don't have to go through a bidding process. So we would just be getting estimates from vendors that are already approved through the supply division or facilities.
Oh, even better. So do we even need a motion then if it's not opening up a bid process?
That's up to you, Chairman.
Uh, well, I'll just make the motion for the sake of making the motion then. But, I make the motion that we authorize Director Ingracia to go ahead and move forward with getting estimates instead of bids. Estimates for the replacement of flooring in rooms 232, 230, I'm sorry, 230, 232, and 234. And for the replacement of office furniture in those same areas, and the replacement of chairs for staff and members in the Kennedy hearing room.
So move.
Second.
So I made the motion, so I'll entertain the second from the Alderman from the 10th. Moved by the chair, seconded by the Alderman from the 10th.
Previous row.
There's been a request for previous roll. Hearing no objection. Motion is sustained. Thank you, Director Ingracia. Do you, by chance, have a timeline on when those estimates would be available?
I'll start scheduling people to come in today.
Great. Okay.
I just have one more item, if I may.
Oh.
It's the constituent management platform that you
Oh,
asked
yes.
about.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is the last thing. Thanks so much for your patience and your time. The constituent management platform services, we are going to be meeting with Salesforce this afternoon. They already have contracts with several departments in the city of St. Louis to talk about whether or not that might be a good fit for us to utilize. And then we'll be scheduling a couple of demos from other organizations as well. There is a possibility that we will not have to open up a full RFP to do this if we're able to amend contract that is already existing in the city of St. Louis, or if there's a new way for procurement that I found out from Chris Carter, our supply commissioner, which is through something called the National Association of Procurement Associates or Organizations, NASPO, through the state of Missouri. So some vendors are already approved there. So I will have more information to report on that. We are taking a bit of time because we do have to have our full launch of the civic clerk agenda and meeting management platform. That's had some challenges behind the scenes with some integration with the city's software system and the platform system, but we're inching closer and still, our fingers crossed, hope to launch with the new session on April 15th. And then maybe look towards the fall or winter for figuring out constituent management pieces.
Wonderful. I am incredibly excited about that. So thank you for the update. Questions from the committee, Alderwoman from the 10th,
Nope.
Alderman from the 14th. Hearing none. Well, are there any further updates, Director Ingracia? Okay. We'll go ahead and move on with the agenda then. Madam Clerk, if you could please excuse the president for necessary absence.
So noted.
And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th. It's been seconded by the Alderman from the 14th. There's been a request for previous roll. Is there any objection to previous roll? Seeing and hearing none, we stand adjourned.